Okay.
Hey everyone, this is Pavlina from Pavlina's Kids Place. I'm on location at Hippiefest in Daytona Beach, and I'm here with Carl Giammarese. Hello.
Yes, hi.
How are you?
Real good.
And yes, and you're from the Buckinghams.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's nice to be here, and you know, we've been playing around Florida for the last few days. We just came up from the Hard Rock. We played last night, you know, in Hollywood, Florida.
That's cool. Yes. So, you started the Buckinghams in 1965. How did your band meet, and how long did it take to get your first song, Kind of a Drag?
Well, we met, we're from Chicago. We started in Chicago, and we all knew each other. We all played in different bands, you know, and so we knew each other from playing a lot of the same places. You know, back in those days we had teen hops and dances and things like that, and teen clubs, and so, you know, we all knew each other from different bands, and we decided a couple of the guys from one band, they were actually in a group called the Pulsations, and I was in this other band, the Centuries, and they asked me to join them. So I joined them, and then Nick Fortuna, who's with me here on the Happy Together Tour, he's the other original Buckingham, he came into the group. And then we started playing as the Pulsations around Chicago, and then we landed a TV show called All Time Hits. It was a variety show on WGN television, and it was a 13-week syndicated show. And then they changed our name to the Buckinghams because they wanted something. The British invasion was happening, and the Beatles were, you know, really big. So they were looking for a band that sounded, you know, the British look to it and name and everything. So they changed our name to the Buckinghams, and we started doing the show as the Buckinghams, and then we became very popular in the Midwest, and that landed us a recording contract with a record label called USA Records in Chicago. And so that's that was the beginning then. Then we started recording as the Buckinghams.
Okay, that's cool. So almost 45 years of being in the Buckinghams, what has been your
45
what has been your happiest time, and what has been your most memorable time?
Oh gosh, there were so many happy times and really great. You know, the first time I went to New York, you know, to sign with Columbia Records, and performing on the Ed Sullivan Show. You know, that was, you know, in those days, you know, we didn't have MTV or VH1 or anything like that. You would just, if you were lucky, you were invited to appear on one of the great shows back then, and you'd play your new record, you know, like we did the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, the Jerry Lewis Show, American Bandstand, you know, and of course the Ed Sullivan Show was the epitome of success in those days. That was, you know, once you got it. So that was one of the big highlights, you know. And there were a lot of highlights in the concerts we did too, and performing at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles was a biggie, and you know, and all the great people we've met. The career, you know, one of my highlights was meeting John Lennon and Paul McCartney. You know, was to meeting the Beatles. You know, was definitely a highlight. You know, so there's just so many. In 45 years, I could probably write a book of just highlights. You know.
Yes. Yeah, I remember when I first went to New York, and that was, I think I was 10, and because I'm 12 now, and that was for Broadway Dance Center. I'm not sure if they had it back then, but yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't recall if they did, but that's when was that? When you were 10?
So that was like 2 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, and I also
Great.
did the Macy's Parade up there.
Oh, great,
Yes.
great. I'll bet you could sing too. You a singer? Yeah,
Yes.
you do it all.
Yes. So, who or what inspired you to perform?
Well, probably the biggest influence was the Beatles, you know, to put a band together. That's when but I mean, I started playing before that, and what got me hooked really was, you know, I started taking guitar lessons when I was about 13 years old, and my mother was a big Elvis fan, you know, and she wanted me to be like Elvis. She wanted me to just play and sing, and I was listening to Elvis records, and that was like around 1960. or so, 61. And so that was an influence, you know, hearing Elvis. And then I was listening to a lot of the different artists at the time, too, that were an influence on me, like the Everly Brothers and Little Richard and James Brown and Roy Orbison and all these people that you have no idea who they are, but they were big in the business, and they've made great records and great songs, great music, you know. And then, you know, I was fooling around with it and having a good time until the Beatles came here in '64, and when I heard that, and that's when I decided that's what I wanted to do forever, you know, is make music and be in a band, and, you know, so that's when when I first started playing in a band was in '64, and then of course I met up with the guys who eventually became the Buckinghams, and we got together in '65, you know.
Okay, that's cool. So do you have a favorite song that you like to perform, and why?
A favorite song that I like to perform?
Yes.
Well, it keeps changing. Right now, of course I enjoy performing all our hits, you know. I mean, that's, you know, what the audience mainly comes to hear, is for us to play our hits. And, you know, I have fun with, sometimes we cover favorite songs. We're doing a ballad now called The Worst That Can Happen, which is really a nice song by a great songwriter, Jim Webb, did that originally. And I don't know, you know, it changes a lot, what, you know, because we change things around in the show. But, you know, I probably enjoy performing Kind of a Drag more than anything, because you know, it was a #1 record for the Buckinghams, and it always gets the best response from the audience. And you know, people ask me all the time, how could you keep singing those songs over and over again? But it's the audience, because of the response you get, the feedback from the audience. That's what keeps you, you know, interested and excited about doing them, you know.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Cool.
Yes. When I talked to Tony Butala from the Letterman, he said, always love what you do. Yeah.
You know what? Let me close this door again.
Okay. When I talked to Tony Butala from the Letterman, he said always to love what you do. Do you have any words of wisdom for kids, and what would they be?
Wait, say that again now.
Like words of wisdom for kids.
Oh. Well, are you talking about in general or in the music business?
In, like, mainly the music business.
In the music business? Well, I would have to say, you know, words of wisdom is that you have to really, really, really want to do this to begin with, because it's a lot of work and it's not easy, and you have to stay focused. You know, it's if you're going to get in this business, it means a lot of sacrificing. I mean, I missed, you know, growing up, I missed my prom, you know, I missed a lot of weddings, family weddings that, you know, different, you know, I had, you know, my fiance and my wife were always angry with me because I could never be there, you know. So it's the only thing is, you know, I mean, if you have the talent to do it, you have to really be dedicated and just stay focused all the time, you know, and it's got to be the most important thing in your life. Otherwise, you know, you're not gonna do it. You know, it's that's all I can say really, is stay focused.
Yes. Yeah, I remember I would have to perform sometimes, and I would miss birthday parties, and my friends, and they'd come like to me next day of school, and they'd be like, Pavlina, where were you? And I was like, I was performing, and they're like, oh, okay.
Well, do you feel bad about missing those things? Well, see, then that's the right answer, because that means you love what you do, and this is what you want to do, and you're willing to sacrifice. You know, there's a lot of kids your age that aren't willing to do that. They don't want to miss out, you know, and which means that this is probably not the most important thing in their life, which means they probably won't, you know, be successful at it. So that's good if you feel that way.
Yeah, I usually just bring their present like the next day and stuff. So
well,
they'll be happy.
Why not?
Yes.
See, at least you're thoughtful enough to do that.
Yes. Okay, and what do you like best about Hippiefest?
Well, first of all, this is the Happy Together tour. Is that what you mean? Or
yes.
You know, because the Turtles, you know, Flo and Eddie were on Hippiefest, you know, And this Happy Together tour is, I think what I like best is it's not that long. You know?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. You know, we did the Happy Together tour back in 1985, and I was still in my 30s, and it was 7 months long, and we did 200 shows, so that was a long, you know, tour. No, what I like best about this is there's a lot of things. For one thing, I really like working with the artists that we have on this tour. You know, working with Mark Lindsay and Mickey Dolenz and the Grassroots and the Turtles. It's really a pleasure. We all get along and we all have a lot of fun. And I like watching what's best. I like when I watch the show, the reaction from the audience, because, you know, over a period of about 3 hours, we give them, you know, 50, 60 hits, you know, and just the reaction from the audience. And, you know, our audience is still so supportive, and they're still there for us. And what I like best is just seeing their reaction and the pleasure that it gives them. And then another thing I like very much is when we have the opportunity to sign autographs after the show, and people come up to you and they say, you know, when you recorded this song, I was doing this, or I was doing that, or my girlfriend broke up with me, or I just got married, or I just, you know, to like feel like you're part of the fabric of their life, you know, really is quite a compliment, you know.
Yes.
You know,
okay,
so
and do you have any, I'm sorry, what?
But I was going to say that's one of the best things about it, you know.
Yes. Okay, and do you have any plans for the future?
Yeah, I always have plans for the future. Okay. Believe it or not, 60-year-old guys still have plans. They still have a future. You know, but I'll answer that question, but, you know, one of the things that gets to you a little bit when you reach this point in your career is that people always want to talk about the past and the things that happened. So it's like sometimes you get a little tired of that and you want to just talk about the present and the future, you know. And Nick and I are always doing different projects, and our plans for the future are, one is we're going to continue touring as long as we can. We have quite a schedule that's building for even next year, you know, that's one thing. We just recorded a brand new, we have a DVD video that we shot in high definition of our whole show, and it's called Up Close, and I'll have to give you a copy of that.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And so that we're excited about that. We just signed a record deal with that, and it's being distributed, and we have that out there. So that's a nice thing to have going on in the future. I've been working on an autobiography for about 3 years now, and I didn't realize how time-consuming that was, and I don't know when I'll have it done, but one of my contemporaries, Tommy James, from Tommy James and the Shondells, he just brought his book out, autobiography, and he spent 10 years writing it. So it takes a lot of time to do that. So hopefully, though, in the next 6 months, I'll have that book out. And so I'm excited about doing that. So there's always projects. We're always doing new things besides playing, you know. And I still enjoy recording. And thanks to the internet and our website and Facebook and everything else, we can still get our new music out too, along with, you know, all the past recordings, you know. So.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes, well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Well, you're welcome. It was a real pleasure, you know. You're a good interviewer. You know?
Thank you.